Sicko Mode is the big single off Travis Scott's album Astroworld. It was one of the most sonically adventurous hits of 2018. The song has been described as whacked out and skittery. Billboard said there's no disguising how weird Sicko Mode is as a pop song. So, what made this song so bizarre to so many critics and listeners? For one, its structure. Sicko Mode is essentially 3 songs in one, each section riding on a completely different beat. But even more so, it's the moments before these beat switches that sounded like nothing else on the radio. Take this moment halfway through.
Who put this shit together? I'm the glue.
Someone said,
Shorty face, Tommy out the blue.
Someone said,
Before the beat switches, 2 things happen. First, all the music drops off except for the vocal and what sounds like a distorted kick drum.
Someone said, motherfucker, someone said.
And then this happens. A vocal sample echoes over and over into silence. These spacious interludes in the song can be traced back to a genre of music that has influenced everything from punk rock and hip-hop to pop for nearly half a century. Jamaican dub. Jamaicans are a people obsessed with audio. In the 1950s, DJs in Kingston, Jamaica's capital, would load up their trucks with a turntable, a stack of American rhythm and blues records, and massive speakers to play at parties. These sound systems, the DJ and their setup, gained cult followings, each one taking on their own whimsical names, like Duke Reed's The Trojan, Coxson's Downbeat, and Mutt and Jeff Sound, named after the comic strip. Through the 50s and 60s, the speakers got more complex, but the basic setup remained the same.
DJing was basically like one turntable, a mixer, and an echo chamber, and it was really about who had the cleanest, clearest, loudest sound.
That's Chris Leacock. He's a DJ and producer who goes by the name Jillionaire. He's part of the group Major Lazer.
For the most part, you have a subwoofer, you have a mid-range speaker, and then you have a horn or a tweeter, which is your high end.
Certain frequencies you will hear out of certain boxes, whether it's the drum, the bass, the piano, the Hammond organ, it all goes in somewhere along the line on the sound system.
This is Mikey Dread. He's 1/3 of Channel One, a UK-based sound system that's been around since 1979.
When the sound system drops the bass, you feel it from your feet right up to your belly.
Competition between the sound systems was fierce. DJs would scratch the labels off their most popular R&B tunes, so other sound systems didn't know what they were playing. And when American R&B was taken over by rock and roll, Jamaicans looked to their own musicians for new sounds. That led to ska, which became Jamaica's first form of pop music. Through the 1960s, ska evolved into the slower tempo rocksteady and then reggae. By the 1970s, there were a handful of highly prolific recording studios across Kingston, churning out reggae hits that blasted across those sound systems. But it's at Treasure Isle Records where things started to shift into new sonic territory. This is King Tubby, an electrician turned music engineer who would radically change the sound of reggae. He worked at Treasure Isle and was tasked with stripping the vocals out of songs to produce instrumental versions that would show up on the B-sides of singles. Through this process, he realized he could produce unique versions of songs if he added and subtracted different aspects of the track. In doing so, he created a new genre called dub. Dub, in its most basic form, is taking a song, stripping out the lead vocals, pumping up the bass and drums, and adding effects like echo and reverb. That sounds simple enough, but King Tubby and other legendary dub producers like Lee Scratch Perry, Augustus Pablo, and Scientist made this an art form. Their studios were laboratories filled with gear that they pushed far beyond their supposed limits. The best way to understand how dub works is by listening to a song's original version. Since you likely won't have time to build a wall of custom speakers to feel this bass, you should probably put on your headphones. Here's a few seconds of I Admire You.
Hey girl, I admire you.
On the flip side is Watergate Rock, King Tubby's dub version. first thing you'll notice is that the vocals are stripped out and the bass line has been pushed to the foreground. You also might notice this sound right here. That weird snare hit didn't show up in the original, but it was a King Tubby staple. Likely achieved with this piece of gear right here, the Fisher Space Expander. Released in the early 60s, the Space Expander was a spring reverb unit originally meant for home hi-fi systems and even cars. The idea was that you'd connect it to your home turntable, and with a slight twist of a knob, sound waves bouncing through the spring would simulate the natural reverberation of a well-designed auditorium. In King Tubby's hands, this machine did more than its makers intended. He used it in subtle ways to make an old-fashioned snare drum sound otherworldly. But he also found a whole other way to create effects that were anything but subtle. The only way this effect right here could have been achieved is if King Tubby physically shook the spring. And that's exactly what he did. He turned the gear into an instrument. The effect became a King Tubby trademark and would go down as one of the most discordant sounds in dub music. Among the thumping bass line, wobbly snare hits, and the clanging of metal springs is another quintessential effect in dub, and my personal favorite, echo. Tape delay, which creates that echo sound, was developed in the 1950s. It's the process of recording sound to magnetic tape and using the distance between the recording head and playback head to create audio feedback. By the 1970s, tape delay had been used on dozens of iconic recordings, albeit in very subtle ways, from Elvis Presley to the Beatles.
Well, they took some honey from a tree, dressed it up and they called it me. Everybody's trying to be my baby.
Dub artists use tape delay like their lives depended on it.
The word echo, just alone, is represented in reggae music. So if you really don't have echo, something's missing.
While there were dozens of different types of units that could create echo, two that found their way into many dub tracks of the 1970s were the Roland Space Echo and the Maestro Echoplex. If you open the tops of both, you'll see there's not much to it. A single magnetic tape spinning in an infinite loop. But when the knobs of these machines were turned to extreme combinations, the results were trippy. Take a listen to Jacob Miller's song, Baby, I Love You So. That melodica you hear is being played by Augustus Pablo, the producer of the track. He was a protege of King Tubby and mixed the dub version of this song at his studio. The result is one of dub's most celebrated tracks, King Tubby meets the Rockers Uptown. A heavy dose of echo applied to the slivers of vocal and melodica make the song feel like it's floating in outer space. When King Tubby left Treasure Isle to build his own studio, he did that not just to have his own space to experiment, but to produce unique dub versions for his own sound system, Tubby's Hometown Hi-Fi. The story goes that the first time he played a dub version, the crowd went wild. Today, we've come to expect a heavy bass line, reverb, and echo because dub's influences have made their way into nearly every genre of music. But sometimes those sounds still surprise us. Whether deliberate or not, Sicko Mode's production mirrors the sonic themes that Jamaican dub music pioneered decades ago.
It is a very typical kind of like King Tubby's kind of leaf scratch kind of production in terms of it, in terms of one song going in 2 or 3 completely different directions.
Dub music has evolved with every generation, but its spirit of sonic experimentation has always stayed the same.
In our sessions, it's like a spiritual movement. It makes your mind go into your own, no matter who's around you. We don't stop playing reggae music. Rastafari.